Hey, welcome back to this mini lecture. My name is Dino. It's on Moral Mondays, social ties in a grassroots movement. So I'll talk a little bit about the movement and how social ties plays into it. What is Moral Mondays for those who may not know? Back in 2013, 17 protesters were arrested in Raleigh, North Carolina's legislative building. The arrestees included union activists, professors, and religious leaders, among others. This collective nonviolent civil disobedience eventually developed into weekly Moral Monday protests in North Carolina. What about its growth? Almost 1,000 North Carolinians were arrested by the end of the 2013 summer legislative session. Tens of thousands of people in total protested on Mondays, not only in Raleigh, but it expanded across North Carolina in its major cities as well as the South. The largest, these were seen to be the largest North Carolina protests since the 1960s civil rights movement, so it was a big deal. One of the main drivers for these Moral Mondays was the Reverend William J. Barber. The second, he was president of the North Carolina chapter of the NAACP. He's also been a distinguished visiting professor at Union Theological Seminary in Uptown in New York. He co-authored a number of books, three of which are The Third Reconstruction, Moral Mondays, Fusion Politics, and the Rise of a New Justice Movement. Revive Us Again, Vision and Action and Moral Organizing are among the books. He's also written op-eds for CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, and The Post. And in terms of a sort of endorsement, the great Cornel West called William Barber, quote, the closest person we have to a Martin Luther King Jr., which is obviously pretty high praise. If you have the chance to hear him speak, he is amazing. The Moral Mondays dealt with a number of issues. I'll go over a couple of them. First is voting rights. The protest focused on redistricting and proposed voting rights changes. For example, 51% of North Carolina voters chose a Democrat for a U.S. House representative, but Republicans won 9 of these 13 election seats. So there was an effort to want to change these voting rights restrictions. In terms of public education, they protested against education cuts. The average 2012 North Carolina teacher earned only about $9,500 less than the average U.S. public school teacher, which is a pretty big salary gap. The 2013 teacher budget included no raises to base salary, so it was this differential with other states was going to stay the same, if not worsen. And the budget phased out tenure for public school teachers by 2018, eliminated future salary increases for teachers who earn master's degrees, which incentivizes them to become better teachers and more qualified in their subject matter. And it also cut $120 million from the teacher assistant budget. And if you know anything about K-12 teaching, having teacher assistants is really important and useful and helpful to the teachers and the students. The Racial Justice Act, Governor McCrory signed a bill repealing the state's Racial Justice Act of 2009. This act allowed inmates facing the death penalty to challenge sentences based on racial discrimination, because unfortunately sometimes race does become involved. The previous governor, Bev Perdue, previously vetoed similar legislation. So from those issues, what I want to more focus on is the idea of social ties, which comes from the great Mark Granovetter in his 1973 article, The Strength of Weak Ties. What is a tie? If you don't know it, it's a dyadic interpersonal relationship between individuals. So they form a dyad, these people. And he contrasts the ideas of strong ties and weak ties. For strong ties they were important for emotional support. You characterize strong ties as being, for example, relationships with your friends or family or other people who are close to you. Weak ties, in contrast, they provide access to new information and opportunities, and they're more distant or casual relationships, so they're a little bit less intimate. And when you think about social media, as an example, for delivery of ties and maintenance of ties, they're mainly weak ties. Schrady in 2018 wrote on Moral Mondays, talks about the prevalence of strong ties over weak ties. And I'll read the whole quote, it's pretty long. Rather than spontaneous digital weak ties of participants without any strong institutional connections, strong ties in the form of structured organizations and grassroots organizing propelled this large-scale movement, and the movement being Moral Mondays. A coalition of groups which had cohered ideologically in the face of an economic and political crisis was critical to its emergence. The social media that began to flourish after more than a month into this large statewide Moral Monday protests reflected rather than started the movement. So what Schrader is arguing is that social media did play a role, but it was well after the Moral Mondays became a big deal, and again, reflected rather than started the movement. If you are interested in Moral Mondays and happen to be in North Carolina or across the South, they have Twitter. Here are the Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook links to them. That was Moral Monday, Social Ties, and a Grassroots Movement. My name is Dino. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to like this video. Please feel free to comment on it. And please feel free to subscribe if you want to see similar types of videos. Take care.